Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Lumi podcast. My name's Hayley and I am coming to you from beautiful Ballarat in Victoria, Australia, where it is very much a Ballarat winter's day. It is cold, it is rainy, and the rain is very welcome because it's quite dry here at the moment. The dams are really low, the creeks are low, so it's really fantastic that we're getting some rain today. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I live and work, the Wadawurrung people, and extend my gratitude for their ongoing custodianship of the land, skies and waterways. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. It's great to see you again. You can find me on Ravelry at Lumi Knits AU and on Instagram at lumi.knits. Every podcast I say I'm going to try and do a better job of updating those platforms, and I rarely do. So you may find more information over there or you may not, but if you want to check it out, all the links and places to go will be down in the description. So feel free to utilize, I suppose. Today I'm going to follow a pretty traditional podcast format. I've got some finished objects to show you. I have got some whips. I have some acquisitions in the form of things I've won in giveaways, which is very exciting. And just a bit of a life update. A few things have changed in my world lately. Well, one major change, but I'll get to that at the end. And yeah, I thought I'd have a quick chat so you can see where I'm at with that. Today I am wearing my Alpine Bloom t-shirt. If you're a returning viewer and you've seen my previous podcasts, you'll know that this has been a labour of love, but also a labour of exasperation and frustration. So it's kind of a big deal that I'm wearing this now. I still hate the sleeves, but I still very much love the yoke and the yarn that I used. And yeah, if you want to find out more about how I feel and why I feel the way I feel about this, you'll have to check out a previous podcast. I will put it in the description box so you know which one to watch to get more details. But, you know, just looking back in the camera at this, it is such a beautiful garment, and I just wish that the sleeves had have worked out better for me. But I can correct that if I want to, so I shouldn't complain too much. So my first finished object that I'm going to show you today is actually a sewing project. I had like a 3-day midlife crisis, I suppose, where I just really missed the 90s. Everything that's happening in our world at the moment is just, it's crazy. And I suppose I was thinking back to a time when things were a bit simpler. I also really love 90s fashion, so I got very inspired and I downloaded a pattern to make an A-line skirt, like an A-line mini to wear with tights over winter. And so I cut that out and I made one. I guess this is probably what you'd call just like my muslin, just the test one. But, you know, I always expect the worst and hope for the best. And the best outcome is that I've got a wearable garment at the end of it. And I think that I've succeeded this time. So this is the skirt. It looks enormous and I don't think it's going to fit, but it is just a basic A-line mini skirt. It has a zip at the back. It has darts at the back. I'm not a competent zip sewer. I think this is probably the first time in maybe 20 years that I've tried to sew a zip into anything, and it was an invisible zip, so it was quite tricky, but it has come out okay. Like, it's not high level work. It's quite it's a bit messy, it's a little bit uneven. That'll come out in the wash. That's just a water-based marking pencil. You know, I can't see, I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of slightly uneven here. The zipper teeth are showing. But after, I had a lot of trouble understanding the instructions to put the zipper in, so I had to kind of do it myself, I suppose, and work it out myself. And once I'd worked it out myself, I thought, oh, maybe I should have watched some YouTube videos about that. So I went back and I did watch some YouTube videos, and now I have a much clearer understanding of what the instructions were trying to tell me and what I need to do next time. So the next one that I'm going to make is in a burgundy corduroy. I'm going to lengthen the hem a little bit because this is borderline for me. It hits kind of mid-thigh, and you know, I'm a 43-year-old lady. I don't know if I want to be having it hit mid-thigh. So I'll probably extend it just a bit to come up, you know, maybe 15 centimeters off the top of my knees would be nice. So yeah, and this skirt, I bought the pattern from Etsy. It's called the Cara Skirt by Maryel Designs. I'll pop the information below. And overall, it's a pretty good pattern, pretty good instructions. The only place where I found it difficult was the zipper, and then putting the waistband facing and how that worked with the zipper was quite confusing to me. I feel like it probably should have got a bit more emphasis in the pattern. Maybe broken the steps down a bit more with some illustrations would have been really helpful. But now that I've made one and I've watched a few videos independently, I think that the next one will be better. So perhaps next podcast I might be able to show you that, but perhaps not. I might forget about it. So that's my only sewing thing at the moment. I generally don't talk a lot about sewing in this podcast, but when I do make something that I'm excited about or looking forward to wearing, I will show you. If you're just here for the knitting, I'll try and put timestamps in or something, but I'm not very good at editing, so maybe I won't. There's not a lot of decision making happening here today. So my first finished object is the Flourish socks by Helen Stewart. These are part of the Secret Sock Society number 6, which I bought and I was eagerly awaiting. Helen Stewart's patterns are always fantastic in that they are so detailed in the instructions. I made a few modifications to mine, which I'll talk about as we go. This is the finished sock. It's been on the blocker, so it's sort of wrinkling in towards the middle, but it's this really beautiful lace pattern. I love these ties down the side. I think they're called ties. Knots. They're knots. I love these knots down the side. I think this is an element that I'm going to incorporate in some of my self-drafted sock patterns. I think it's just a really nice little detail that's pretty quick and easy, intuitive, and I think would go really well in a stockinette sock. I may have talked about that in my previous video. So I knit this in Yarn by the Bay sock yarn, and I can't remember the colorway, but I will pop it down below. And it is just a gorgeous colorway, like all the colorways that I've gotten from her. They're really, really quite beautiful. I think this is probably showing it with a bit more definition than what it looks like in real life because of the light. It's kind of a lot softer in real life, so it's not as dramatic in the changes. So the modifications that I made to this pattern, I put a few extra repeats in the leg, purely for the fact that every time I make a pair of socks, I have about 40 grams of my sock yarn left over, which is not enough to make another pair, but it is also too much to disregard, and it annoys me. So I've been experimenting in my socks to try and use up a little bit more of the yarn so that maybe I end up with 20 grams at the end instead of 40. I just get frustrated with 40 grams. So I put a couple of extra pattern repeats into the leg. I did a fish lips kiss heel instead of a heel flap and gusset because I had it in my head that a fish lips kiss heel fits me better, but I've started to second guess that. I don't know. I think every pair of socks I knit, I do differently. So I'll use a different size needle, or I'll do a different foot count, or a different heel, or a different toe. And so I'm finding it really hard to establish what I actually prefer. It kind of just depends on my mood. If I don't feel like doing a heel flap and gusset, I'll do a fish lips kiss. If I don't feel like doing a wedge toe, I'll do a rounded toe. I do actually always tend to do rounded toes because I don't like the wedge toes. So this is an example of the rounded toe. You can see This is not my best one, and I think because I used 2mm needles, which is a smaller needle size than I usually use, it didn't sort of round off as much as what it usually does. I could probably put a couple of extra repeats into the part before you dramatically decrease. The rounded toe pattern that I use is found on Modern Daily Knitting in their Socks Without Ears blog post. And if you go right down to the bottom, there is a recipe for a rounded toe sock without grafting, which is the one that I use. But I do think if I'm going to do fingering weight socks on such small needles, I do need to adapt that a little bit. So overall, I'm really happy with these socks. I think perhaps I should have put a couple of extra, maybe just 1 or 2 pattern repeats into the foot. When I put them on, they don't, again, I'm struggling to get the fit right in socks, which is crazy because socks were the first thing that I knit when I started knitting 9 years ago. And I've been knitting socks all this time, but I've never really actually considered if I like the fit and what I can do to make sure I do. So maybe this will be a bit of an ongoing project for me, is working out my needle size, working out my heel, working out my toe, so that I do just have a go-to sock recipe that I can rely on. Overall, the yarn is beautiful. The pattern is beautiful. I think it's come up so nicely. I'm not a huge lace knitter, but I just think that this is a really nice pattern. It's very intuitive. I think it took me, I maybe had to look at the pattern a few times when I started. I did lose count quite a lot in the first sock, and I was skipping some yarn overs, and so my count was out and I had to rip back quite a few times. But once I sort of made up a little rule for myself where I would count the stitches every second row, every row 2 of the pattern repeat, to make sure that I had the right stitch count, I didn't run into that problem anymore. I do tend to sort of fly by the seat of my pants with stitch counts and just go for it and not count, but it bites me in the butt a lot. So I made this little rule for myself, and I did check my stitch count as I went to make sure I hadn't skipped those yarn overs. So that was a good thing. So as always with Helen Stewart, it's a really well written pattern. It's come up with a beautiful sock. I'm so glad that I knit it. That being said, the next sock that's come out in the Handmade Sock Society, number 6, is called the letterpress sock, and it just doesn't grab me. Like my ambition was to knit every sock in this series, but I'm looking at the letterpress sock and it's not my thing. I don't really enjoy using pearls to create patterns, I suppose, and that's very much what this letterpress sock is. So I think I'm going to skip this one and just do some other stuff in between. I may come back to it in the future, but it just doesn't, like, maybe when I've seen some finished ones, I might decide that I want to knit that up myself. But as it stands at the moment, I've looked at it and I'm sure that it's a great pattern, and I'm sure that it's really, up some people's alley, but it's just not my thing. So I would rather wait and knit something that I really want to knit than just to knit it for the sake of knitting it. My next finished object, and this is a direct result of me getting frustrated with my 40-gram balls of unused sock yarn, is I made my daughter a pair of mitts. So I've had this yarn floating around for probably 5 years because I bought it to make the Shifty sweater and I could never get gauge. So this was one of the contrast colors in the Shifty sweater. It's a Scheepjes yarn, Our Tribe. I couldn't tell you the colorway, it was that long ago. So I was looking through my drawers and I found this yarn. I was like, come on, I've got 40 grams of this. Let's clear it out. My kids need mitts because, as I mentioned, it's winter here. It's getting colder. And so I thought, you know what? Perfect. She likes pink. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups a little bit. She likes these colors, so I thought I would make her a pair of mitts. And this used, I think, 38 grams. So I was very, very happy with that. I did keep what I had left. My son really wanted to take it and do something. I'm not quite sure. But this is all I had left. I probably could have made them a tiny bit longer, but I was very scared of running out. And I thought I was going to be playing fairly hardcore yarn chicken, but I didn't. I had these two. I held this double to make these mitts, just because I could not be bothered making fingering weight mitts and doing all those stitches. So I didn't use a pattern per se. I just cast on 40 stitches. I did some ribbing, gave a bit of length to the hand, did increases every second round, did some purling around the edges so I didn't have to use DPNs or magic loop for the little thumb holes. They do look quite triangular, but when they're on the hand, they look pretty good. And I just knit a few rows of stockinette and then ribbed the top and cast off. And they fit her really well. I can actually squeeze my hand into them, but they look much nicer on her little hand. If I was making this for myself, I would make them probably up to about there. But it's good to know that this is like this 40 stitch cast on can fit me and my daughter, who's only 7. So yeah, I think these are going to be really useful for her because they're because they're a sock yarn. I think they'll wash pretty well. So I think it's off the top of my head an 80-20 blend of merino and nylon. Probably not merino, actually. They don't feel very merino. There'll be some kind of, sheepy wool and nylon. But I think they'll wash well. They didn't take me very long. I think I knocked these out in a couple of days, and I think they'll be really useful. So that's one. Oh, there's 2, obviously. And they are brothers, not twins, and that's fine with us. We don't care about that. So anyway, self-drafted mitts. Very glad I made them, got them done. Excellent. And while I was on a roll, I thought I would use some more of that yarn from my unmade Shifty sweater, and I started a pair for my son. So this is the first one. I cast this off this morning and immediately cast on the second one, which is, I think I've done 2 rows of stockinette, but I'm anticipating these will be done by the end of Monday, probably Sunday today. So yeah, I think they'll be done fairly soon. They're a quick knit, they're easy. I don't have to read a pattern. They're no problem. They're enjoyable. I'm really enjoying the immediacy of these mitts. Getting them cast on and cast off within a couple of days is very refreshing to me, because my other works in progress are quite long haul projects, which I'll show you in a second. I am still using the bag that I made for the Handmade Sock Society that I love. Yeah, it's a really good size. I think I thought that size would be too small for projects, but it's actually a really great size for these little projects like socks and mitts. So I might knock up another one of those just so I've got some variety. I like to change them around. Yeah, so that's one of my works in progress. The other work in progress that I want to show you is the only other project I've been working on. I haven't picked up my Go-Go Dynamo because I'm feeling a bit intimidated by these short row triangles. I will come back to it, but again, I think this is going to be one that takes me a year or 2 to complete. Yeah, so we won't talk about the Go-Go Dynamo, but I do want to show you my Emery Vest / sweater, because this is the other project that I've been working on consistently. I finally was able to join the back and the front, and I am now working the body in the round, and she is gorgeous. Look at this. It takes a long time because it is an all over cable project. Even in the sides aren't even straightforward. That's a moss stitch, and then the designer has brought in another one of these diamonds coming down the side. So really every stitch you have to look at and listen to and pay attention to. So it's not something that's a fast knit for me. It's something that I really do need to sit down and concentrate on and pay attention to. But it's just coming up so beautifully, and it's so satisfying to see it sort of taking shape before my eyes. That's one of the things that I love about knitting. Like, it's slow, but when it starts to all come together. It's so exciting. And I feel like I'm at that point with this. I still haven't decided if it's going to be a vest or a sweater. And I think that it's going to come down to the fit. So when I cast this on, I was in a larger body than what I'm in now, currently. And I think maybe I sized up because I'm fairly sure I'm knitting the size 8 for this. I haven't gone back and double checked my measurements or anything like that because I kind of don't want to know. I feel like if I do try this on and it is really big, I'm going to make it into the sweater because I feel like an oversized sweater fits better than an oversized vest. But it's all going to depend on the fit when I finish the body. When I finish the body, I'm going to try it on. I'm going to see how it looks. If it is oversized, I will make it into a sweater. If it is an okay fit, like not too oversized, I will probably go with the vest. The other thing I was thinking was if it is unbearable either way, there is this moss stitch section here, and on the back it is stockinette, so I could steek or graft and take probably 4 inches out across the body if I took out both of those moss stitch sections on either side. So that's a possibility as well. But I am not going to make that decision until I have cast off the hem and have tried it on and see how I feel about it then. So I think this is going to be a really interesting project because it's been a lot of new techniques for me. I've done cables before, but I've never done all over cable with different charts. And steeking is something I've never done before because I'm not really a cardigan person, but I can see that that might be a really useful skill to have in a garment like this where I do need to remove, or I may need to remove some bulk. But we will wait until I've cast off and I can make that decision then. So anyway, I really love how this is turning out. I found it a bit strange when I did this that there's this middle section. There's like a space between the cables here. I don't know if you can see it, but I ended up having to go back and look at the project pictures to make sure that I'd done it right because I thought maybe I'd put in an extra row where I shouldn't have. But no, that's how it's supposed to look, and it is very, very beautiful. So yeah, that's my Emery Vest and Sweater, and that's a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I'm knitting this in Bendigo Woolen Mills Rustic 12 ply, I want to say. That was frogged from a Felix cardigan that I made and didn't like. So again, I'm trying to use up yarn that I've got rather than buying more. But I'm going to Bendigo in a couple of months to the Australian Sheep and Wool Show, and I probably will buy more. I also got an email from Bendigo Woolen Mills saying that they are now selling mohair. Can't remember what it's called. It starts with F. But anyway, it's a 70% mohair, 30% mulberry silk yarn. And knowing Bendigo Woolen Mills, it'll be fairly affordable. I've never really knit with no mohair before other than in my daughter's poncho, which is a funny thing in itself, but I'm not going to go into that now. And yeah, I think I would like to, but I've got that much yarn sort of backed up. I would like to use a lot of what I've got before I go investing in any more. So they are my whips that are actually being addressed. So I'll leave it there for whips, but I did want to talk about some acquisitions in the form of giveaways. So I've won 2 giveaways in the last month or so, which is really exciting because, you know, sometimes you enter giveaways and then you think, well, why do I bother entering giveaways and I never win? But yeah, so I've won 2 in the last month. So the first one I won was a digital copy of the Liner 52 Weeks of Scrappy Knits, which is a book that I really, really was interested in looking at. I was going to buy a hard copy, but with the Liner books, I often find that I like a few patterns, but probably not enough to buy them, and I sort of get a bit of buyer's remorse. And so I was really grateful to win this giveaway from Gotham Knits. on Instagram, and I got that digital copy of the 52 weeks of Scrappy Knits, and there's a few patterns in there that I love and that I will definitely have a go at, and there's a whole bunch of patterns that I probably will never knit. So it was really wonderful to receive that digital version so that I could have a really good look through the book and get an idea of, you know, what was there and if it appealed to me or not. So was pretty excited about that. So thank you, Gotham Knits, Olga. It was really a lovely surprise to win that. The second giveaway that I won was from Ash at Smash Knits. Her podcast is fantastic. If you don't watch it, she's a real joy to watch. She's a very happy and engaged knitter. She knits a lot. She talks a lot about her projects, and she's just really fun to watch. And she's sort of, you know, fun to invite into your world. So Ash did a bit of a whip down and went through and showed a bunch of her whips, and she invited people to guess how many whips she had. And my guess was 31, and I think she came in at 29 or 30. And so I was lucky enough to receive a bag from her from Patel Knits. And this is it. The fabric is called Melbourne something or other, and I picked that because, you know, Ballarat's not far from Melbourne. Ash is Melbourne based, and it was probably my favorite pattern on there anyway. Like my favorite fabric that was on the Patel Knits website. And it's this really nice squishy marshmallowy bag. So it's a fairly typical project bag, except that between the lining and the outer there's some padding, and so it's quilted and it's really nice and squishy and it holds a lot. It's got some pockets and it's got a clip, and I've been using this to keep spare stitch markers on, so that's been really useful to me because I leave stitch markers everywhere because I make my own. They're like, I leave a trail of stitch markers. If you ever find like a brass stitch marker somewhere with a little charm on it, it's probably mine, because I lose them because they're small and I'm careless sometimes. So that little clip was, I looked at that and I thought, oh, that's perfect. I'm not going to lose any stitch markers when I use this bag. So it was so lovely to receive this in the mail. And it also came at a time where my family had all been sick. We'd been in and out of the hospital with, you know, a fractured wrist, mysterious flu side effects. It had been a really, really tough time. And then this beautiful little ray of sunshine showed up in my letterbox, and it was beautiful, perfect timing, and it really cheered me up at a time where I needed a bit of a boost. So thanks, Ash, and thanks Patel Knits, because I really love this project bag. And it was, yes, very, very timely indeed. So that leads into the life updates. We've all been sick. We've all had the flu. We've had influenza A. My daughter fractured her wrist doing the death drop off the monkey bars. That's what the kids call it, the death drop. And it sounds extremely dramatic, but it's not as dramatic as it sounds. It's basically a flip off the end. And if you are a monkey bar kid, or you are a monkey bar kid, you're probably not a monkey bar kid now. I don't imagine that many monkey bar kids watch knitting podcasts. But I was a monkey bar kid when I went to school, and we did that trick, but we didn't call it the death drop. You can imagine my daughter going into emergency with this fractured wrist, and they said to her, "How did you fracture your wrist?" And she said, "I was doing the death drop off the monkey bars." And everyone looks shocked and appalled. But it's actually not as bad as what it sounds. So we had that. We all had influenza A, which came with all kinds of lovely influenza A elements, I suppose, which I won't go into because it was gross. My son had some complications from that, and had to go into the hospital to get checked out because the symptoms mimicked appendicitis, to the point where they were talking about getting him ready to go to surgery until they did all the blood tests and the ultrasound to find out that it wasn't appendicitis. It was this fairly mild complication from the flu that resolved itself within days. So good and bad. Like, you know, I'll take that over appendicitis any day. So it's been quite a couple of weeks. But the other thing that's changed, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my last podcast, is that I have a new job. And so my new job is working as an executive assistant to executives, and I've been really enjoying it. So I am not teaching at all anymore. I've given away teaching after 20 odd years, and it has been a game changer for me. I am so much happier. My life is much, much better now. So I thought maybe, I've always thought about pursuing other careers or jobs, or anything, like thought about doing something different, but I've always been a little bit scared. But I got a nice little nudge from a friend in the form of this job, and it's been great. Like, I love going to work now. I really enjoy the work. It's challenging, but it's interesting and engaging. But when I come home, I don't work anymore. I don't spend my evenings working. So that's been a really big change for me, and a really positive change, I think, for myself and for my family. So yeah, that's what's sort of going on in my world at the moment. I think that's about all. I've yabbered on for 31 minutes, which is pretty long for me. Like, I think I usually come in between 25 and 30 minutes, so I've gone over time. But if you've got any questions or any comments, I'd love to hear them. Pop them below, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.